Vice President Harris and Tim Walz will hold a joint rally in Phoenix this week. John King is there now with the focus on Latino voters for his All Over the Map series, which examines the race through the experiences of key voting blocs in battleground states.
Crunch time in the battlegrounds.
Nice to meet you. My name's Meg. I'm with Lucha, Living United for a Change in Arizona.
One handout promotes the Arizona ballot initiative expanding abortion rights. The other promotes Kamala Harris and Democratic candidates for the Senate and the House.
Do you think that your voice has power in this election?
Lucha canvassers are at 600,000 door knocks and counting. They encourage early voting.
Do you know where your polling location is?
Many of the targeted homes are Latinos who are registered but don't always vote.
What's the most common question you get at a door knock about the vice president?
The most common question we get at a door knock is, why Kamala? Why Kamala? And my answer to that is, like, first, she's not a felon. One, she's a strong woman. And as a Latino man, we like strong women and we don't like weak men.
Claudio Rodriguez volunteers for Lucha and also runs a community farm and food bank. He is upbeat about Harris's chances here, says encouraging younger voters to turn out is one big need in this final week.
You do get the folks who are like kind of like feel hopeless, but then you got to bring them back in. You get folks who say like, voting doesn't matter, my vote doesn't matter. And to my response to that is like, whether you believe it matters or not, it still exists. And so why not participate in it, put your voice in there, your little 2 cents.
Tucson is in deep blue Pima County. Biden's giant 2020 edge here was critical to winning the state by just 10,000 votes.
Mickey is one of our biggest sellers.
Right. Tamara Varga is a lifelong Republican who came to Tucson 30 years ago from San Diego. She thought she lived in a blue pocket of a red state.
Did it surprise you in 2020 when Biden won Arizona?
Just absolutely barely, but he won. Surprised me. I was not expecting that.
Varga owns 2 candy shops and 2 food trucks, so she can provide jobs for individuals with special needs, including her sons. She says housing and other costs of living are up. Her gut says Trump is stronger this time.
I feel that Trump's ahead, but I felt that way in 2020 as well. So it's hard to say. You know, I feel that I have had more friends that are open to Trump and are flipping to a Trump vote.
And the local friends who are doing that, do they cite a reason?
The border and the economy. As people are having a hard time putting food on their table and gas in their cars, and it's really affecting them. So I think that they now think about their vote and how it will affect their household.
John, how often does the economy come up when talking with voters in Arizona about their top concerns?
In every conversation, Anderson, not only here in Arizona, but across the country. Let me just show you. I have the mini magic with me. This is the 2020 election map, but let me bring up this graphic. It is stunning when you take a look at it. This is the cost of living, an analysis across the United States. If you look closely at the graph, the darker the shading in any county is where the cost of living, housing, food prices, other prices have outpaced wages over the last 6 years or so. You see all that dark in there? Those are places where housing costs, energy costs, and more have outpaced what you're getting paid in your paycheck. So let's zoom in on Arizona. Look how dark this state is. Most of the counties filled in more dark, including Maricopa County, where I am right now. More than 6 in 10 Arizonans live here in Maricopa County, and look how punishing the cost of living had been. So that is the headwind facing Vice President Harris. Turn on a TV here, turn on the radio here. She's running ads saying her plans, as you were just discussing with the panel, would help with this. Another thing that might help her, though, Anderson, is also the conversation you were just having. There's no question the cost of living is her headwind. But there are also 2 critical voting groups here that are often put off by Trump's rhetoric, and that is Latinos and moderates in the fast-growing suburbs here. So Arizona is just a fascinating test case as we get into the final days.
And if Harris wants to duplicate Biden's 2020 win in Arizona, where does she have to perform?
So let me show you something else. We come back to where we were earlier today. Let me stay in Arizona. Let me blank this out for you here. So if you look at the state, if you come back, so Joe Biden flips this by 10,400 votes, right? It doesn't get much closer than that in a state that isn't reliably red. So you can look at, again, Maricopa County is 6 in 10 people in the state live here. So that's where you're going to focus. That's where both campaigns are focusing. But look how close it was in Maricopa County, 50.3 to 48.1. Yes, Joe Biden won by a bit there, but where you saw those voters in that piece, that was here in Pima County. Look at the margin here. This is a big blue area. This is where Harris has to turn out the vote. Biden had a 90,000 plus advantage in that one county. won the state by 10,000. So you have to go where the Democratic voters are, and you have to turn them out. And that's why those canvassers are going door to door, especially at Latino households who vote sometimes, but not always.
More now on the backlash surrounding the man selected to speak at the Trump rally. He called Puerto Rico a floating island of garbage. The Harris campaign announced today that singer and actress Jennifer Lopez, whose parents were born in Puerto Rico, will join the vice president at her rally in Las Vegas Thursday. Tonight, our John King is there.
Dawn in Battleground, Nevada, the Vegas morning rush, 1 week to Election Day.
So it's very, very tense. It's nerve-wracking because you just don't know what's going to happen.
Antonio Munoz owns the 911 Taco Bar. He's a veteran and a retired Las Vegas police officer, undecided and unhappy with his choices when we first visited 11 months ago, leaning Kamala Harris when we returned 6 weeks ago. Now definitely Harris. Trump's weekend rally in New York removed any doubt.
And that was very, very upsetting, you know. They spoke about Mexicans and having kids like nothing. It's like, where do you come up with this stuff? Why would you say something like that in an atmosphere like that? And that's very troubling.
Munoz is betting on a narrow Harris win here, but says the Latino community is more evenly split than in past campaigns because of housing and grocery costs.
Inflation, it's affected a lot of people here in our community, and they don't see their dollar going the way it used to go, you know. I think they really think Trump's going to make it better, which, one person can't come in and just inflation's going down. It's a process.
Early voting here runs through Friday, and more than 7 in 10 Nevada voters live here in Clark County. That's Las Vegas and its fast-growing suburbs. One big difference this cycle is the Republican embrace of early voting. Arkansas Senator Tom Cotton on hand in Vegas for a Veterans for Trump event to kick off the final week. 1 in 5 Nevada voters is Latino, and a big election year focus at Fiesta 98.1 is urging listeners to flex their political muscle. Rafael Cerros Jr. is one of the owners. 6 weeks ago, he told us he was undecided, and that Trump was running strong among Latinos here.
Anything different from the last time we were here?
A lot.
Cerros is now voting Harris, and he says the racist insults at the weekend Trump event exploded on social media, triggered listener calls, texts, emails.
That alone flipped a lot of people that were going to go for Trump now saying, hey, maybe I'm not too sure. And maybe I'm going, with Harris. The rhetoric, whether directly from, the candidate or not, it's kind of scary, especially, for Latinos here in Vegas, specifically, my Mexican people.
He says, he doesn't know who allowed those speakers to speak at his rally.
Oh, that's BS.
That's BS.
That's BS.
John, this is your third trip to Nevada. It seems like from the people you talk to that those racist remarks from Trump's Madison Square Garden, rally are, at least among them, shifting the landscape.
It sure feels that way. Again, 2 voters, so you don't want to overproject. You don't want to draw sweeping conclusions. But we've known Antonio and we've known Rafael for months now. Our first visit here was 11 months ago, then 6 weeks ago. And we know they're plugged into the Latino community. So we take what they say seriously. And a reminder here, I just had my friend on the trip with me here, the mini magic wall. Let's bring up the population. Look at this. This is the Latino population nationwide. The deeper the shading, the higher the population of Latinos. So let's zoom in on Battleground, Nevada here. And zoom in, you look at Clark County where I am. In Las Vegas, 75% of the votes, just shy of that, will be cast here in Clark County. So, Anderson, our polling here shows a dead heat. If this only impacts Trump a little bit can make a big difference in a battleground state. And both of these voters who we've been in touch with say that it just exploded on social media and that the reaction continues days later. The question is, Trump and Harris both due here this week. Can Trump stop the bleeding, or does it hurt him just a little? Because hurting just a little when it's so close can matter a lot.
Yeah. John King, thanks so much. The former president is speaking now in Green Bay, Wisconsin. Vice President Harris is expected to speak next hour in Madison. Moments ago, we heard from our John King on the latest CNN poll out of Wisconsin. Vice President Harris has an edge, but by no means is the race decided. And it's up to you how much you actually trust these polls right now. As you saw earlier, John is in Wisconsin. He's visiting 5 battleground states in 5 days. It's part of his All Over the Map series that examines the election through the experiences of key voting blocks in those states. Here's what he saw in Wisconsin.
Milwaukee on the red side of a critical dividing line in Battleground, Wisconsin. Octane Coffee is a startup. Your morning jolt here, prepared by a robot. Adrian Deasy is the founder and CEO.
This is all of the robotics.
He grew up in a Democratic household, voted twice for Barack Obama, moved to the Milwaukee suburbs a decade ago.
Toppings, cold foams.
A self-described moderate ready to vote a third time for Donald Trump.
I just see that Donald Trump, from a business-minded standpoint, from a let's make a deal standpoint, and from an economics and financing perspective, I think he's got the right mindset for how the country should be run, how to support small and medium-sized businesses.
Are there downsides to him in your view?
Does he have some character or personality, things that go on? For sure. But I would say you have to separate the message from the messenger sometime.
Trump won suburban Waukesha County in both 2016 and 2020, but his margin was smaller the second time, and Wisconsin flipped back to blue. Deasy believes Trump is stronger this time.
I would say over the last, say, 6 to 12 months, definitely a large Trump bump, if you want to call it that.
Waukesha is a key test of whether Trump can reverse his suburban slide. And across the county line in Milwaukee, a pivotal test for Kamala Harris, too. This is the Trickle B Cafe on Milwaukee's north side. Pay what you can is the motto here. We found a lot of apathy on our first visit to these predominantly black neighborhoods a year ago. Chef Zakiya Courtney says the switch to Harris ended that.
You know, you got somebody that's younger, you have somebody that's with an agenda, you got somebody that's relatable, you know, you got somebody who understands the issues.
Courtney hears talk more black men are for Trump this time. She doesn't believe it's a big number.
And I've heard what it is that people have said. I've heard people talk about the fact that she's been a prosecutor and she's put, you know, black men in jail and things like that. Well, you know, you have to look at that closer. You know, if you've done a crime, you deserve to go to jail. And there's nothing that shows that she has a track record of targeting black men and putting them in jail.
This line for early voting is in Sherman Park, one of the north side neighborhoods where Harris needs high turnout and giant margins.
What I'm seeing right now is an enthusiasm and excitement that's even bigger than when Obama won.
Joins us again. As you mentioned in your story, I mean, you've been visiting Wisconsin over the past year, talking to voters there. How have you seen an evolution?
Enormous evolution. Let's start, Anderson. Come back to the mini magic wall and let's start in Milwaukee. The first piece we aired, I can remember being in studio with you a year ago saying, wow, we were canvassing with Democrats in Milwaukee here. It's so critical for the Democrats to run it up big in Milwaukee. You see the margin Joe Biden had. We were going door to door, Democratic canvassers, and older black women were saying they weren't sure they were going to vote this time. Biden was still the candidate then. They thought it didn't matter. The apathy in the black community was amazing. That is gone. That is gone. We dropped by an early voting site today. You heard the voter in our piece. There's a lot of energy and enthusiasm. Can Donald Trump cut into it some? We'll see come Election Day. But that has changed the race. The Democratic base is now energized and fighting in. So that's question number one. And then question number two, you saw us out in Waukesha County here in the suburbs. You heard our voter there saying he thinks Trump will do better. I think that is the defining question. If Harris, she's in Dane County tonight, Madison, can run it up there, run it up in Milwaukee County where I am tonight. Then it comes down to places like Waukesha. Yes, it's Trump red, right, nearly 60%. But what is Harris's margin out there? Again, first presidential election post the Dobbs decision. The Harris campaign thinks its vote numbers in the suburbs are going to be at least as good as Biden's, if not a little better. That's the key test. If she can have a margin like this in Waukesha and do well in Milwaukee, then she's on her way.
And how critical for both candidates is Wisconsin to the path to 270?
So if you flip the map here and you bring it up right now, and again, you look, we're in the final days here, right? This is my 10th presidential campaign. This is extraordinary. 7 battleground states. No clear leader really in any of them when you average the polls. Maybe Harris in our new poll, just outside the margin in Michigan and Wisconsin. But look how close this is, right? Let's come back here. This is where we are. I'm sorry, I had them shaded blue from our last segment. 7 battleground states. Those are the yellow states right there. Wisconsin, if Harris can win Wisconsin, these 3 have voted together since 2000. If all 3 of them vote together, she's the next president of the United States, unless she loses some solid blue state, which is unlikely. That's how important it is to Harris. Now, if you go back to 2016, remember, Anderson, these were the states, the blue wall states. If they stayed together again and they went for Donald Trump, they would get him close, knocking on the door. He would still have to win somewhere else, and he'd have to win somewhere big like North Carolina or Georgia or the two of those out there to do that. So the blue wall states, because they tend to vote together, we'll see. Maybe there'll be a split this time. But because they voted together in all three since 2000, that's why the campaigns are putting so much money into them, because of the math. You know, you have the three of them together, including Pennsylvania, the biggest prize at 19. That's, again, none of the paths are easy, but that's the easiest path to 270. Win Wisconsin, Michigan, and Pennsylvania. And if you're Trump, then pick up one more.
And you're going to Michigan tomorrow. What are you looking for there?
The same idea. The Democratic, how can Democrats do with black voters in Detroit? Can Harris run strong in Macomb County, which Trump is likely to win? But we talked about the polling earlier, non-college white voters. How does she do there? So I'll come back to the other map just to take quickly to give you a look here. Michigan, again, they all vote together. So you come back to Michigan, come over here in 2020, right? Look at Macomb County. I want to bring you up Wayne County here. And you move up to Macomb County. This is where my first campaign, I love going back here because this is where Michael Dukakis rode the tank. So it's a great campaign memory the first time. There we go. It finally comes up there.
Great,
see the
great
margins,
campaign
right?
memory for you, not so much for Dukakis.
Not for Dukakis, but it was my introduction to America and how counties can surprise you. But Macomb County was blue back then. This is how the map has changed over those 10 campaigns. That was blue. Union workers, blue-collar workers voted for Democrats then. Trump has changed the Republican Party and changed the electoral map in some ways as that has trended over. So I'm really interested. How can Kamala Harris do in Macomb County? Hillary Clinton didn't do as well as Joe Biden. She lost Michigan. If Harris can be somewhere around Biden's numbers, she can win Michigan. So each of these states, the math is the Harris coalition is really complicated, the math. Trump is the constant. Harris is the variable in this race. To me, Trump is the constant. 3 elections in a row with the same candidate leading the Republican ticket never happened in my lifetime. So we can judge him on his past 2 performances, which is why I love going to the battleground states and just testing it out.
All right, we'll see you in Michigan tomorrow. John King, thanks so much. Polling shows a razor-thin race in battleground Michigan with 15 electoral votes at stake. The state is part of the so-called blue wall, along with Wisconsin and Pennsylvania, that often paves the path to the White House. The 3 states have been Democratic strongholds for decades. That's until 2016, when Trump won all of them. 4 years ago, Biden gained them all back. We're now from John in Michigan. He spoke with college students, playing a key role for the election as he continues his All Over the Map series.
I'm calling to ask
Michigan Republican headquarters, 5 days out.
if President Trump can count on you and his support in this election.
A basement phone bank shift. Ralph Brennan among the Michigan State students helping turn out the vote.
I think there's a red wave coming, especially in Michigan, and I think people will be very surprised on how many people vote Republican this election.
Brennan is 21, a junior economics major from Ohio, but he registered in Michigan for his first vote for president.
I was a 6th grader when Trump got elected in 2016, and I watched him, come to the White House. I watched the inauguration. I watched all the great things he did.
Trump struggled with young voters in 2016 and 2020. Brennan predicts better numbers this time, especially among young men.
Thank you, guys.
And especially after Robert F. Kennedy Jr. ended his campaign and backed Trump.
I've heard a lot of young guys say how important RFK was to their President Trump vote. Ever since Trump kind of brought RFK onto the team, onto the campaign, a lot of young men voters really like that and kind of resonate with RFK and what he's done.
In a dead heat race, organization can be the difference.
Hey, just go vote.
Halloween spirit helps.
Just cookies, too.
Treats as well.
Will you fill out one of our Pledge to Vote things?
Jade Gray is a progressive organizer, former co-president of the College Democrats here at the University of Michigan, back on campus to encourage early voting.
We know that when we vote, we win. And quite frankly, we're getting a lot of people out to vote.
Gray's optimism is a big shift. This is our 4th Ann Arbor visit in a year. Back at the beginning, she was down about President Biden's prospects, and later, she was worried Vice President Harris would still lose too many young voters because of student anger over the Israel-Hamas conflict.
Have you guys voted yet? Okay, yay, thanks.
But she is upbeat now and credits a mix of constant organizing and a smarter approach from the Harris campaign.
It was not just the candidate that switched, but it was really their whole approach to the campaign. And leaning into this idea that memes and internet culture is a mode of communicating about politics has totally transformed this race. And I think will be, one of the biggest things we should credit. I'm saying when, but if she wins.
John joins us again from Ann Arbor. So what do the college students say matters to them most when casting their vote?
It's interesting because there has been a shift. Now you hear about student loan debt, you hear about the economy, you hear about their objections to Trump and his rhetoric on LGBTQ issues, his rhetoric on immigration issues. They think the vice president is younger. They think she's more hip, more interesting on the internet, as you heard Jade Gray say there at the end. That's a very different mood. You heard Jade Gray at the end there. My first trip here, Anderson, was a year ago. This is my fourth trip here. She was a lot more despondent then. Biden was the candidate. She was down. Even after the switch to Harris, she was still about her chances. Much more upbeat now because of activity on campuses. I just want to quickly bring in the wall and just show you. So we're in Washtenaw County. That's where the University of Michigan is. Earlier today, where you saw that young Republican voter, we were up in Ingham County. Both of these counties are big blue counties. And on the college campuses, you see a lot of early voting. You do see a lot of energy. And look, this is a very tight competitive race, but the Harris people feel better now than they did just a few weeks ago.
And how does the war in Gaza play into all this?
Well, that's a fascinating question because remember, I came back from one of my pieces here and I was with you in New York on the set. When we were here, there was a big encampment and there was a big protest, not only against the university administration, but against the Biden administration. And that carried over against the vice president. The university won't allow encampments anymore, so you don't physically see the anger. I was talking to Jade Gray because she does a lot of online organizing. She says you do still see some of it online, but she is convinced many of those students are still going to vote for Harris, even though they're angry at the administration because they think Trump would be even worse on those questions, Anderson.
John King, thanks. Well, Philadelphia's suburbs are going to be of keen interest Tuesday night. Enthusiasm for the vice president could be a tipping point in a state she almost certainly needs to win the White House. John King visited one community in his final All Over the Map report ahead of the election there. Let's take a look.
Swarthmore is a postcard of suburban life. Leafy, friendly. Philadelphia, just a 30-minute commute by train. Home to Shannon Elliott, her family, and her small business.
We have a beautiful college campus, woods, trails, close proximity to a lot of different things, but just often a quiet, close-knit community.
This is southeast Pennsylvania, Delaware County, a place where Kamala Harris needs to win big if she hopes to claim the biggest of the Battleground prizes.
And a lot of the messages I get are more panic, and so I feel panicked.
Elliott's vote is not in question.
I don't want to go back there. I see how he treats people and bullies people, and these are things I tell my teenage kids not to do. Why would I want to see my president doing that?
You need a sign?
Harris needs to match or beat Biden's 2020 numbers in the suburbs.
I'll fix it up.
But Elliott hears hints of apathy and of sexism, hints of 2016.
I think people were afraid to vote for a woman once it got down to the final choice, and they made a mistake. And now here we are again with that same decision facing people, and I'm worried it's going to happen again.
Delaware County is reliably blue, but there are pockets where Trump runs strong.
I'm most upset about the lack of a border and the lack of our sovereignty and how that's eroded in the last 3 years. And I feel as an American citizen, I'm underserved, overtaxed, I'm kind of diminished.
Kristen Kapara registered Republican at the age of 18 back in 1988. The Philadelphia suburbs were red then, but Kapara is outnumbered in her Drexel Hill neighborhood now.
We vote on different sides of the aisle, but we are proud Americans. The American flag is outside all of our homes, and so I'm very comfortable there.
This is her New Jersey beach cottage, Lola and Taylor, her friendly labs.
Push onto your left, there.
And this is back in Delaware County, where Kapara teaches figure skating. She believes Trump will run stronger this year because of concerns about inflation, the border, and whether Harris is too liberal.
Well, I think right now there's a very quiet Trump vote. He does have some bizarre behaviors, but at the end of the day, I feel he's patriotic, and I feel he loves this country and my version of this country a little more dearly than the other side.
The suburbs settle close races here.
And back with us is John King. Harris needs to win in the suburbs. By how much?
By a ton, Anderson. 67 counties in Pennsylvania. Joe Biden carried only 13 of them. Only 13 of 67. How do you win by carrying only that small number? By running it up where people vote blue. Let me bring in the map and show you, and let's go through these Pennsylvania the three collar counties right around Philadelphia. Bucks County is one of them. It's the most competitive. See how the president did in 2020? Look at how Hillary Clinton did 4 years before that. She won it, but not by as much. Let's move to Montgomery County. She won it there pretty comfortably, but then come to 2020, Joe Biden won it by even more. This is where I am tonight, Delaware County. Look at that huge Biden margin. 4 years before that, Hillary Clinton also won it, but not quite as big. In just those three counties, Montgomery, Bucks, and Delaware, Hillary Clinton beat Donald Trump by 162,000 votes. In those same three counties, Joe Biden beat Donald Trump by 239,000 votes. What is the difference there? Let me come back to the 2020 map. Joe Biden got 76,000 more votes, a 76,000 vote advantage over Hillary Clinton in those three suburban counties, right? How much did he win Pennsylvania by? 81,000 votes. Suburban math matters. Harris runs it up here. She has a chance.
All right. John King, thanks very much.